Hi guys, Robbo46 here, welcome yourselves back to Ride 4 on the Xbox Series X. Now, we're going to be talking about the Portuguese Grand Prix, which we had at the weekend for MotoGP. And we will be going through all three classes, so spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen any of the racing from the weekend, I would suggest turning this video off and going to watch them if you can. But if you have watched the racing, we're going to dive straight in. So, you may be wondering why the hell I'm playing Ride 4 instead of MotoGP 20. Well, that's because MotoGP 20 doesn't have this track in the game. Portimao is not in MotoGP 20. They didn't release it as DLC either, which I always thought was a bit strange because they have the data for Portimao. They're obviously working on it for Ride 4 as well. So I don't get why they couldn't implement it into MotoGP 20, but they didn't. So it was either a choice between Laguna Seca or Donington on MotoGP 20, or actually racing around Portimao on Ride 4. So I opted for Ride 4. I am using a Triumph Daytona 675 with Sam Lowe's Mark VDS colours on it. But yeah, we're going to go through all three categories. Of course, MotoGP, the championship was wrapped up at the previous round at Valencia. Joan Mir took the championship, but Moto 2 and Moto 3 have yet to be decided coming into this race. So let's start off with Moto 3. There was a few riders who had to take a double long lap penalty during the race, two of which were both the Leopard riders, Joan Masia and Dennis Foggia. Raul Fernandez, continuing his really good form that he's had, you know, for quite a while now. You know, he's been getting some really good pole positions, and then all of a sudden he's on winning form, and Portimao was no different. As soon as he got into the lead, that was it. He managed to pull away, and not just ease away. He dominated the whole race. Obviously, there was a championship up for grabs for the likes of Albert Arenas, Oyagura, and Tony Arbolino. Tony Arbolino started way down the order. His qualifying did not go to plan. He was down in the 20s for qualifying, so he had a lot of work to do. And yeah, it was looking like it's going to be between Albert Arenas and Oyagura at the beginning. Both of them got inside the top three, with Albert Arenas just ahead of Oyagura. Oyagura got past Albert Arenas, but immediately Arenas would fight straight back to get in front of Oyagura. And then a little bit into the race, we had Oyagura start dropping down the order slightly. Both Leopard riders took their 2 long lap penalties, and they came out just outside the top 15. But they worked together, and they worked together very well, and managed to fight their way back through the pack, along with Tony Arbolino, who was within that group, but when both the Leopards took their 2 long lap penalties, Tony Arbolino was then with them and was able to work with them to close down the guys ahead. Raul Fernandez just clicking off the laps, pulling away lap by lap, going quite a bit quicker than anyone else, and it was looking like Albert Arenas was going to try and at least get a podium, but yeah, the only rider he kind of seemed to attack was Oyagura. As soon as Oyagura got past, Albert Arenas would basically just fight straight back and get back past him. Then more riders decided to join that group. You had the likes of the Tech 3 riders of Dennis Onchu and Sasaki join that group. You had Suzuki as well join that group, and they were all fighting with Arenas. By this point, Oyagura had dropped a couple of positions, and it was looking like his compatriots Suzuki and Sasaki were both going to try and get the better of Albert Arenas, which Suzuki eventually did. Antonelli was up there as well for a little bit. He was trying to fight through as well. Good to see him towards the sharper end. You also had the likes of Garcia and Alcoba in that second group, and they were obviously fighting their way through as well. Alonso Lopez wasn't a good day for him. He crashed out with 7 laps to go. The two Leopards and Tony Arbolino caught the second group of riders and were really starting to make up positions. By that point, Albert Arenas was starting to drop back through the order as well, but he was still staying ahead of Ayogura, which is basically what he needed to do. Until a bit later on in the race, Tony Arbolino came past Albert Arenas, and again, just like he'd done with Ayogura, Albert Arenas had to fight straight back for to get that position back from Arbolino, because Arbolino had an outside chance to get the title. And once Arbolino did get past Arenas, he started to gap Arenas. And then by this point, you had Alcoba and Garcia, and even Dennis Foggia, who'd done his 2 long lap penalties and got into the second group as well. They'd all started pulling away from Arenas, Arbolino, a bit Darren Binder as well was there, Vietti was up there, Ayogura, John McPhee, and they were all fighting together. And Arbolino done his best to try and close that gap down to try and get a podium. And it was looking like he was going to do it for a while. And then he just kind of couldn't quite get with it and started to drop a bit further back. And unfortunately for him, couldn't get on the podium. Albert Arenas, meanwhile, was still getting beaten up. Dennis Onchu got through. Ayogura got back through and was able to stay ahead of Albert Arenas. And yeah, it was looking a little bit dodgy, especially when it came to the final lap for Moto 3. Well, Masia crashed out with 4 laps to go. He'd managed to get into that group as well. And Tatsuki Suzuki crashed out with 2 laps to go. But on the final lap, it was a little bit hectic for Albert Arenas, with people doing some very aggressive moves on him. He was putting some aggressive moves back on them as well. Nearly got taken out at one point as well, but he managed to stay on. But it's Raul Fernandez who did manage to come home and take that victory. At one point, his lead was over 8 seconds. By the end of it, he won by 5.8 from Dennis Foggia, who, let's not forget, had 2 long lap penalties in this race. He finished in second place, so a fantastic race for Foggia. Jeremy Alcoba took 3rd position and the final podium position. And then in 4th place, you had Sergio Garcia. Tony Arbolino could only manage 5th place, which unfortunately was not enough for him to take the title. Darren Binder was 6th, with Vietti in 7th. Ayogura took 8th, with McPhee in 9th. Onchu in 10th. Antonelli 11th. Albert Arenas got knocked all the way down to 12th position. However, that was just enough for him to take the World Championship, despite the fact he had a warning for exceeding track limits, and did in fact exceed track limits again on the final lap, but nothing became of that. So yeah, he did clinch 12th position. Sasaki took 13th, Carlos Tate in 14th, Toba took the final point scoring position in 15th, and you had Barry Boltus in 16th, Yamanaka 17th, Fernandez in 18th, Nepa in 19th. When I say Fernandez in 18th, that is Raul Fernandez's brother, Adrian Fernandez. Nepa in 19th, Fenati 20th, Mino 21st, Cooney in 22nd, Dupasquale in 23rd, Riccardo Rossi 24th, Koffler in 25th, Pizzoli 26th, Rodrigo in 27th, and Powie in 28th. So that was enough for Albert Arenas to win the title by 4 points. Tony Arbolino and Ayogura ended up on exactly the same points, with Arbolino in second and Ayogura taking third on countback. So yeah, that was your top 3 of the championship. Albert Arenas was crowned Moto 3 World Champion for 2020. And he did deserve it. He's been the most consistent rider through 2020. He's had a bit of bad luck as well. He's had a bit of a controversial moment as well at the first Valencian round. And personally, I don't think he was punished enough for that. But that's in the past, and that's by the by. So, yeah, Albert Arenas did take the overall championship. Tony Arbolino in second. Iogura third. And then Raul Fernandez did take fourth position in the end, just ahead of Vietti in fifth, Macias sixth, McPhee in seventh, Darren Binder in eighth, and Sergio Garcia took ninth place. So that was Moto 3. On to Moto 2. Now, at the first Valencia race, we saw Sam Lowes have a horrendous crash in the race, and unfortunately damaged his right hand. It then came to light that he had actually broken a couple of bones in his right hand. He managed to scrape a couple of points in the second Valencia race, but it was showing that he was in considerable pain. But yeah, that was a good ride for him, just to take a couple points at the second Valencia round. Obviously his hand is still injured. There was no time between races to have it operated on, or if it had, he wouldn't have been able to race. And of course, he probably shouldn't have raced anyway. And he nearly didn't, because he'd done a couple of laps in morning warm-up, went back to the pits, and basically said to his team that it's not looking good and he doesn't think he's going to be able to race. But they managed to talk him into it, and yeah, he qualified on the second row, which was a really good position to be in. Remy Gardner was on pole position and was looking very good and had really good pace as well. You had Bastianini on the second row as well. You had Luca Marini on the front row, and Marco Bezzecchi didn't have the best of qualifying, but not too bad, a bit further down on the grid. But yeah, it was an interesting race, and yeah, a couple of riders did not finish lap one. In fact, Digi Antonio down to turn one, he made a pass on Sam Lowes, but then he did in fact lose the front, went down, and collected Nicolo Bulliger as well. So both of them went out on lap one at the first corner. And Digi did have good pace as well, and it was looking like he was going to be a bit of a threat throughout the race, but unfortunately he didn't get to show that. We had a battle at the front. You had Remy Gardner leading for a bit with Luca Marini in second. Sam Lowes was in third position. Bastianini was he did actually get up to a podium position, but Sam did manage to put the move on him to get through and actually pull away from him. And yeah, Marini managed to hit the front, and we had the live championship, of course, up on the screen throughout the whole race. And you know, Marini had nothing to lose. He knew he had to win the race, and hoped that enough people could get in between him and the beast to enable Marini to win the title. Remy Gardner was not dropped. He dropped down to second place. He did drop a little bit. And it was looking like Marini was going to be able to just do what he'd done in a few races of this season, and just, you know, take a couple of attempts a lap out of the riders behind and just ease away. Marco Bezzecchi, who did have a mathematical chance of winning the title, but it was going to be very, very difficult for him. He was a bit further back, trying to make a few passes. Augusto Fernandez rode an amazing race for his teammate, basically protecting Lowes from anyone trying to interfere or get in front of Lowes, especially when it came to Enea Bastianini. Fernandez done a great job at basically just trying to attack the beast where and when he could, and anyone who got ahead of Fernandez, he would then try to take them as quick as possible, because obviously he was trying to protect Sam Lowes, who was in third position at the time. And Sam was looking good for a bit. He actually got into second position, and he was, you know, wasn't too far behind Luca Marini. He was closing in at one point, But then as the race progressed, unfortunately, his hand was obviously starting to become a bit of a problem. He made a couple of mistakes, which obviously dropped him further back from Marini. He then had to push to try and close back in on Marini, which he'd done. He set some decent laps at the time. He was setting the fastest laps of the race. And then, unfortunately, a little bit later on in the race, he went wide at one of the hairpins, and that then allowed Remy Gardner through. And by that time, Sam had lost over a second to Marini. And yeah, wasn't looking too good for Sam Lowes. By this time, Fernandez was still fighting with a few of the riders. You had Hector Garzo, who crashed out with 18 laps to go, as did Jorge Navarro. So both of them crashed out. You had Casper Daniel crash out with 13 laps to go. Edgar Pons crashed out with 11 laps to go. You also had Isdihar crash out with 6 laps to go, and Simone Corsi crash out with 3 laps to go. But once Remy Gardner got past Lowes kind of just settled down a little bit and just clung on to the back of Remy Gardner, who in fact started to reel in Luca Marini, and he was dragging Sam Lowes with him towards Marini. And it was looking like, Sam is playing it smart. He might just be able to, go with these two. And if these two start fighting and, one of them does a bit of a block pass or a bit of a lunge and sends them both wide, then obviously Sam could try and come through and take the win. Sam needed to win to obviously take the championship. Bastianini was down in about 8th place at that point. And, it was looking like it was definitely going to be doable for Marini and Sam Lowes. But unfortunately, Sam then just started to fade a little bit towards the end of the race, and wasn't able to do anything about Luca Marini and Remy Gardner. Remy Gardner did manage to get through on Luca Marini. And once he'd done that, he then started to pull away. And Remy Gardner managed to take his first Moto2 victory by 1.6 seconds from Luca Marini in second. Sam Lowes took home a heroic 3rd position, and considering the amount of pain he's in and the state of his right hand, that is definitely the ride of the day from me. Hence why I'm using his livery on this Triumph for this race. But I think he kind of showed his grit and determination, and he done all of us Brits very, very proud. So hats off to Sam Lowes for taking 3rd position. Marco Bezzecchi, of all people, managed to come through to take 4th position. So good ride from him once he managed to get into his stride. Enea Bastianini took 5th position, which was just enough to take the Moto2 World Championship. So congratulations to Bastianini, our 2020 Moto2 World Champion. Jorge Martin took 6th position, with Joe Robertson 7th. Fernandez then took 8th, with Baldassari in 9th, Vierge 10th, Ramirez in 11th, Schrotter in 12th, Ben Schneider 13th, Nagashima 14th, Canet in 15th, who did have a long lap penalty, Luti 16th, Dalla Porta 17th, Chantra in 18th, Manzi 19th, Agata 20th, and Siren the last finisher in 21st. So the Moto2 World Championship was won by Enea Bastianini on 205 points. Luca Marini and Sam Lowes, just like in Moto3, they were joint on points on 196. On count back, Luca Marini takes 2nd place in the championship from Sam Lowes in 3rd. Marco Bezzecchi took 4th, with Jorge Martin in 5th, Remy Gardner 6th, Joe Roberts 7th, and Nagashima in 8th, and Marcel Schrotter takes 9th. Then it was time for the main event, and it was local hero Miguel Oliveira who put in a fantastic performance in qualifying to take pole position. And to be honest, no one could touch Miguel. No, he led from the very beginning of the race, from pole, set the fastest lap of the race, and just dominated the whole race, a bit like Raul Fernandez did in Moto3. But Miguel Oliveira on the Tech 3 KTM. Just, local knowledge. And, unfortunately for him, there's obviously no crowd at Portugal. But he put on a fantastic performance. You had Franco Morbidelli and Jack Miller fighting all race long for second position in the race. Unfortunately for Pecco Bagnaia, he unfortunately had to retire the first lap. He got hit from Joan Mir. Joan Mir qualified third from bottom. The 2020 world champion did not qualify well at all. And he did hit Francesco Bagnaia through turn 2 quite hard enough to injure Bagnaia, who had to slow down and go back into the pit because he was in a lot of pain. So Bagnaia had to retire from the race. With Miguel Oliveira out front, Franco Morbidelli in a good second place with Jack Miller in third. It was looking very, very similar to the second Valencian race between Jack Miller and Franco Morbidelli. Paulo Espargaro had a decent race, his last race for the Red Bull KTM team before he moves on to Repsol Honda next season. He was he was hanging around fourth position for a lot of the race. Cal Crutchlow with his last race, not just with LCR Honda, but in MotoGP altogether. He was towards the sharp end to begin with, but he unfortunately did start dropping down the order as the race progressed. Quartararo, he had a decent enough start, but again, he started to fade as well. And in fact, he got into a battle with the two factory Yamahas of Vinales and Rossi, and at one point they were in 13th, 14th and 15th place, battling between themselves. Andrea Dovizioso obviously trying to sign off his last race with Ducati. He is still expecting to come back in 2022, but he has said it will definitely not be with Ducati. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Tito Rabat, his last race in Moto 2 as well, and didn't really go to plan. It hasn't really gone to plan very often for Rabat in MotoGP. 3 riders starting their last race of the season, and 2 of them pretty much the last race in the MotoGP category. I really don't know how Dovizioso is going to be able to come back in 2022. So, we'll have to wait and see. Stefan Bradl, though, he'd been going pretty decent all weekend, and he was well inside the top 10 throughout the whole race, in front of his teammate Alex Marquez. But like I said, Miguel Oliveira, no one could touch him all weekend. He got pole position, he had the fastest lap of the race, and he was just on another level this weekend and managed to take his home victory, which is obviously a very emotional time for the Portuguese rider. Obviously, no Portuguese rider had ever won a MotoGP category race before Oliveira had done it at the Red Bull Ring earlier in the season. No Portuguese rider had ever been on pole position in the MotoGP category either. Obviously, Miguel Oliveira was on pole for this race, and he also took the win as well. So he definitely made history at the weekend, and fantastic to see the KTM rider who does move over to the factory KTM squad next season. Franco Morbidelli, who was in second place for most of the race, he was under attack from Jack Miller on the final lap of the race, and it was looking like it was going to be very, very similar to what happened at Valencia, although this time Jack Miller managed to just outbrake Franco Morbidelli into the next corner, turn 12, which we're coming up to on the screen now. He managed to put his Ducati up the inside. Morbidelli left him room, and that was it. Morbidelli wasn't able to get back past the Ducati. Obviously, there was no way the Yamaha was going to be able to out-drag the Ducati to the line. So Jack Miller played it smart and played it very well to take second place in the race, with Franco Morbidelli taking home third. Paulo Espargaro completes his stint at the Red Bull KTM squad in 4th position. Take Nakagami, a decent season this season for Nakagami. He comes home in 5th position. Andrea Dovizioso bows out of Ducati in 6th place. Obviously, he would have liked to have at least bowed out with a podium, but you know, it's been a very, very difficult season for Ducati. But that 2nd place for Jack Miller did give Ducati the Constructors' Championship, which is obviously very important to the manufacturers. So yeah, Jack Miller did secure that for them. So yeah, Dovizioso came home in 6th. Stefan Bradl, the first Repsol Honda to come home in 7th position. Alicia Spargo on the Aprilia was 8th. Alex Marquez was 9th. Johan Zarco was 10th. Maverick Vinales was 11th place, just ahead of his teammate Valentino Rossi in 12th, who obviously bows out of the factory Yamaha team and moves to the Petronas Yamaha squad for 2021. Cal Crutchlow came home in 13th place. Fabio Quartararo, the worst of the Yamahas, which, you know, we didn't say that very often this season, came home in 14th place, with Alex Rins coming home in 15th place. Joan Mir unfortunately had a mechanical. He did have some electronic issues throughout the whole weekend, but he was stuck in 16th place and nowhere near 15th. And yeah, the world champion, it was a good job that his mechanical wasn't at Valencia, and he'd already got the championship wrapped up, because he ended up with a DNF at Portimao, and Lorenzo Salvadori crashed out with 3 laps to go. So yeah, Alex Rins took the final point scoring positions. Rins, he was inside the top 10 at one point. Obviously, he was trying to get 2nd in the championship, but then he got shuffled back to 15th place and only scored 1 point. Danilo Petrucci ends his stint at Ducati with 16th place before he goes to Tech 3 KTM next season. Mika Kallio, who was standing in for Ika Lecuona, who obviously had a positive virus test, he was 17th place. And Tito Rabat ends in 18th place. So that was MotoGP. And yeah, it was a very interesting race. A lot of battles going up and down the whole field. So yeah, Joan Mir ends with obviously the championship, which he wrapped at Valencia. Franco Morbidelli was the rider who finished in 2nd position. And, you know, if you said that at the beginning of the season, Franco was going to finish 2nd in the championship, I think a lot of people would have probably laughed and thought, nah, it's going to be Quartararo who finished in 2nd position in the championship. But it looked like, because Morbidelli is on the 2019 spec M1, it looked like that M1 was working a hell of a lot better, quite a lot of the tracks this season, than the 2020 version, which the likes of Quartararo, Rossi and Vinales were all riding. So it wouldn't. Apparently Morbidelli is going to stay on the 2019 version for 2021. It'll be interesting to see if Rossi decides to go for the 2019 version as well. Yeah, but obviously Yamaha got a hell of a lot of work to do, but they do now have a decent test rider in the form of Cal Crutchlow for 2021. So yeah, Joan Mir, the world champion for 2020, and yeah, he managed to win the championship by only winning 1 race. Franco Morbidelli, like I said, took that 2nd position in the championship, with Alex Rins taking 3rd. So Lee Suzuki took 1st and 3rd in the championship. Unfortunately missed out on the Constructors' Championship, with Andrea Dovizioso ending in 4th position, which to be fair isn't too bad at all considering the season he's had. Paulo Espargaro, top KTM, finished in 5th position. Maverick Vinales was 6th place, with Jack Miller in 7th. Fabio Quartararo, who, let's not forget, was leading this championship at one point, he finished down in 8th position in the championship, so it definitely all went away from him after the halfway point of the season. Miguel Oliveira took home 9th position in the championship, which is very good indeed, with Nakagami in 10th place. Then you had Brad Binder in 11th, Petrucci 12th, Zarco in 13th, Alex Marquez 14th, Valentino Rossi's worst season ever in 15th place, Pecco Bagnaia 16th, Alicia Spargaro 17th, Cal Crutchlow 18th, Stefan Bradl 19th, Ika Lecuona 20th, Bradley Smith 21st, Tito Rabat 22nd, Michele Pirro 23rd, Mika Kallio 24th, and Savadori in 25th. So that was the end of the 2020 MotoGP season. Rookie of the Year goes to Brad Binder, who did finish in 11th place in the championship. You might remember he won at Brno as well, taking KTM's first ever victory. Pol Espargaro unfortunately didn't get that elusive win with KTM, which obviously he was very, very desperate to try and get before he left them for Repsol Honda. So 2021 is going to be a very, very interesting season. I'm sure we'll get interesting races as well. But 2020, what a season it has been. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, and the craziest season we have seen for a very long time, with Marc Marquez having a horrendous crash at round 1 and breaking his arm and trying to race at the second Jerez race. Only managed to do a few laps in free practice before then basically retiring for the rest of the season. It all started from round 1, and we've had 9 different winners this year. We've had a lot of surprises. Joan Mir took the championship in the end by only winning 1 race, but he was the most consistent rider out there every weekend, and a well-deserved championship for him. And good on him. But I think 2021 is going to be a bit of a strange season, and quite a crazy one as well. But yeah, big thanks to the organisers of MotoGP for getting racing underway this season. But that is it from me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel for more content. I shall see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to stay safe and to wash your hands. See you.